on shaky ground, but we got the truth and we gonna shout it loud. From the healthcare to taxes, they can't hide from us. With a wink and a nod, we expose all the fuss. Educating the masses with a smirk on our face, bringing clarity to the headlines in this crazy race. From the White House to your house, we cover it all, putting humor in the facts, we're having a ball. Oh no, America, let's get real and laugh, teaching you the politics with a little bit of sass. Current events and headlines that blow your mind, only on Oh No America you'll find.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to Oh No America. Uh-oh. Church lady. She's had too much to drink. Could it be Satan? Hey, y'all. Hey. Thank y'all for being here. I am sorry I'm late. I was late because I was filming an interview for a whole other channel that will premiere tomorrow. Esoteric Atlanta. Tune in for that. I'm going to be on that channel. Oh my goodness, guys. I literally ran to the loo and then came back. I've just been sitting in this chair since 11 a.m. And yeah. There you go. This is going to be a wild day. But first, I'm going to cover this hearing. Because, y'all, this hearing for the confirmation of Mr. Hegseth. Let me see if I can still. There we go. This testimony is literally everything, guys. There were a few highlights, but guys, we got to see. This is why I watch C-SPAN, y'all. It was on MSNBC this morning when I turned it on, and I realized they were going to just start talking about it and interpreting it. And I don't want to see the interpretation. I want to see the real thing. Okay, and nothing but the real thing. Okay, so we're going to go over this brilliant. There will be things we're going to fast forward because it's 3 hours, guys. It's 3 hours. All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into it. Here we go. Let me put up my disclaimer. Okay. I'm going to put this down here at the bottom. Boop. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All rights and credit go directly to its rightful owners, the American government. No copyright infringement is intended. All right. Let's get going here. So this is a lot of, okay. I just didn't want to go through all the seating. Here comes the introduction.
Interested members of the public. If confirmed, Mr. Pete Hegseth would assume the role in a moment of consequence. The United States faces the most dangerous.
I'm just speeding it up, y'all.
Security environment since World War II. We're witnessing the explosive growth and reach of China's hard power. We're also observing the emergence of an axis of aggressors.
Okay. Fear. We are in big shit.
That coalition is characterized by broadening and deepening military cooperation among the dictatorships ruling China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Terrorism remains a threat. As
when was it not a threat?
Israel wages war against Hamas and Hezbollah, and as the Assad regime collapses in Syria. America has entered a window of maximum danger, and the department needs energetic and focused civilian leadership. Those values begin at the top with the Secretary of Defense. Many of my distinguished colleagues.
He just looks so uncomfortable, like when he's not marching around a stage, right? He just looks like he's probably like me. He has a hard time sitting still. There he is in a very tight shirt. It's tight. With a tie, it's tight. His jacket is tight. His hair is tight.
Colleagues have served in a significant tenure on this committee, and our meetings are fairly long. We should reflect over previous secretaries of defense and their hearings and ask ourselves a simple question. Has the civilian leadership of the Pentagon under the administration of both parties proven up to the challenge? Often the answer has been no. The civilian leadership has not built the Department of Defense to meet the moment. And this is our moment to correct that. A few examples illustrate how leaders in the past have fallen short. Most of the department's signature programs run years behind schedule and
the military behind schedule. What?
billions of dollars over cost. Vital initiatives have suffered, such as the F-35, the new Sentinel ICBM, and the Navy's shipbuilding program, including the Constellation-class frigate. The Department of Defense desperately needs civilian leaders who listen to the advice of combatant commanders, many of whom would benefit from innovative systems. Yet a risk-averse DoD culture has kept too many promising technologies on the wrong side of the so-called Valley of Death. That tenuous period between experimental prototypes and production contracts. Defense companies backed by venture capital receive less than 1% of defense contracts. As we all know, the Pentagon still...
Defense projects backed by venture capital receive less than 1% of the contracts? Who's getting all the other ones?
cannot even pass an audit. The department must simplify and streamline its bureaucracy so...
Yeah, the Department of Defense is a mess, y'all. I love when we just air our dirty laundry for the whole world. By the way, our Department of Defense, trash. It's a trash dumpster fire. We are so unorganized. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. Please come invade us. Like, what the it's like, I mean, I'm happy that we have public hearings, that we, that we do this and it's like full disclosure, but also keep some things in the closet. We don't need to tell everybody that we suck so hard. Jesus.
It can respond to innovation. Staffs have ballooned. Organizations are top-heavy. Civilian leaders have promised time and again to slim down the bureaucracy, and perhaps genuinely hoped to. Every day, men and women in uniform make tremendous contributions to U.S. security. They and the American people deserve a Pentagon that does the same. Today's Department of Defense is no longer prepared for great power competition.
What? We're all going to die. We're not prepared.
It is not a national defense institution ready to achieve and sustain technological supremacy.
Great. We suck at war. We suck at technology. What else do we suck at?
Across the range of operations. Admittedly, this nomination is unconventional. The nominee is unconventional. Just like that New York developer who rode down the escalator in 2015 to announce his candidacy for president. That may be what makes Mr. Hegseth an excellent choice to improve this.
Guys, look at his America pocket square. Look. This man is defiling the flag of the United States right now by making it into a pocket square. That's a violation. Who the fuck does he think he is?
Unacceptable status quo that I just described. He is a decorated post-9/11 combat veteran. He will inject a new warrior ethos into the Pentagon, a spirit that can cascade from the top down. Mr. Hegseth will bring energy and fresh ideas to shake up the bureaucracy. He will focus relentlessly on the warfighter and the military.
Look, every time his face twitches because he wants to smile like, yeah, bitch, you're talking about me, bitch.
Military's core missions, deterring wars and winning the ones we must fight. He will bring a swift end to corrosive distractions such as DEI. Today, many simply acknowledge and live with these systemic problems I have mentioned earlier in acquisition, accountability, technology transition, and organizational civil service reform. Mr. Hegseth will actually move to fix these issues decisively. In short, I'm confident that Mr. Hegseth, supported by a team of experienced top officials, will get the job done. The Secretary of Defense is an incredibly important position, but the Secretary's span of control is limited. The Pentagon is vast with 3 million plus personnel, uniformed civilian, and contractor. A successful secretary understands that steering the ship means focusing his attention on strategic level priorities. The secretary must be supported with exceptional subordinates who will run the day-to-day affairs of the Office of the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, like you have to be a real person who knows what the fuck they're doing. This guy, I respect his service. He served his country. Yeah, and then he went on to be a weekend Fox News host, flirting with his co-hosts and, trumpeting loud for the Trump train.
The military services and the other DoD components. I'm also confident that as an infantryman, Mr. Hegseth understands the military principle of commander's intent. Communicate the clear objective, empower subordinates to use initiative and judgment, and hold everybody accountable. We must not underestimate the importance of having a top-shelf communicator as Secretary of Defense.
Top
Other than
shelf,
the
guys.
President, no
Top
official plays a
drawer.
larger role in telling the men and women in uniform, the Congress, and the public about the threats we face and the need for a peace through strength defense policy.
No. That's straight out of George Orwell's 1984. Peace through strength. Fuck that shit.
I have no doubt Mr. Hegseth will excel in a skill in which many of his predecessors have fallen short. Much has been made of both Mr. Hegseth's personal life and some of his policy pronouncements. Regarding his personal conduct, Mr. Hegseth has admitted to falling short, as we all do from time to time. It is noteworthy that the vast majority of the accusations leveled at Mr. Hegseth have come from anonymous sources. Contrast these anonymous accusations with the many public letters of support and commendation. We have seen letters from people who
Do they really balance out, though? Is it really like tit for tat?
served with Mr. Hegseth. These individuals have worked with him professionally. They really know him and his character. These patriotic Americans have been willing to put their names and reputations on the line to support Mr. Hegseth. I look forward to sharing these testimonials with the American people. Let me mention one right now. It comes from David Bellavia, who earned the Medal of Honor for heroic actions in combat in Fallujah, Iraq.
Now remember,
Bellavia
guys,
writes
this
the
is at
following.
1.5x.
Pete is fearless,
So
unflappable,
he's not
and
actually
confronts conflicts
blinking
head on.
that fast.
He's a leader to the core. When Pete is confirmed as the next Secretary of Defense of the United States of America, this country will finally know the privilege of having a true ambassador able to speak on behalf of this generation and its two-decade global war on terror. Washington doesn't build men like Pete. Combat builds men
Washington
like
doesn't
Pete.
build men like
As I
Pete.
said, there are more letters expressing the same endorsement. Today, we'll hear from the nominee directly. I want to thank Mr. Hegseth as well as his loved ones for being here today. I look forward to discussing his nomination. I look forward to hearing from Mr. Hegseth about the ways he hopes to rebuild the American strength that secures the peace.
Barf. This guy is really, really... I'm glad you're okay still, Stacey, with the fires. Okay, good.
And so now I turn to my friend and colleague, Ranking Member Reed,
Here we go.
for his opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to first congratulate you on your chairmanship. I look forward to continuing our committee's strong tradition of bipartisanship and collaboration. And thank you for your thoughtful and conscientious service to the committee over many years. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to take a moment to join Chairman Wicker in welcoming our new members, Senator Slotkin, Senator Banks, and Senator Sheehy. Welcome. We look forward to working with you. Mr. Hegseth.
Guys, I've never heard of this man in my entire life. He's a senator. I have no idea who he is. I feel like every time I tune into C-SPAN, I'm in a Mandela effect, and I've just witnessed someone appear brand new. It's like I'm watching a show, and they just throw a character at you as if they've been there the whole time. I've never heard of this man in my life.
I welcome you and your family to today's hearing, and I'm also glad to recognize my former colleague, Norm Coleman, and Congressman Mike Waltz. Thank you, Congressman. Mr. Hegseth, I want to begin by saying that I respect and appreciate your military service in the Army National Guard. I know from experience that there is no greater privilege than to lead American soldiers, and I thank you for answering the call. You have been nominated to be the Secretary of Defense. The Secretary is responsible for leading a department of 3.5 million service members and civilians, an annual budget of nearly $900 billion, and hundreds of thousands of aircraft, ships, submarines, combat vehicles, satellites, and the nuclear arsenal. The Secretary also plays a powerful role with our allies, partners, and adversaries abroad. And as we speak, China is seeking to undermine our interests, intimidate our friends, and challenge our standing in the world. Russia's campaign against Ukraine threatens not only Europe, but the entire global order. Ongoing violence in the Middle East has teetered on the edge of all-out war, and the ideologies and actions of violent extremists endanger our citizens, even on our own soil, as the recent tragedy in New Orleans painfully reminds us. These are perilous times, and the position of Secretary of Defense demands a leader of unparalleled experience, wisdom, and above all else, character.
Character, guys. Character.
The Secretary is expected to be a fair, nonpartisan, and responsible leader, as well as a trustworthy advocate for the men and women that he leads.
Well, he should just get up and walk out. That's not him.
Mr. Hegseth, I do not believe that you are qualified to meet the overwhelming demands of this job.
Coming
We
out
must
of the
acknowledge
gate
the concerning
hard.
public reports against you. A variety of sources, including your own
Rhode Island showing up today.
writings, implicate you with disregarding the laws of war, financial mismanagement, racist and sexist remarks about men and women in uniform, alcohol abuse, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and other troubling issues.
Look at his face. I didn't think they were going to talk about that. Ah.
I reviewed many of these allegations and find them extremely alarming. Indeed, the totality of your own writings and alleged conduct would disqualify any service member from holding any leadership position in the military, much less being confirmed as a Secretary of Defense.
Exactly. Like all this shit, somebody would have been booted from the military. A dishonorable discharge. But this is the guy we're going to put in charge of the entire military.
Nonetheless, I understand that you reject many of these reports as they involve whistleblowers, non-disclosure agreements, and anonymous, although numerous, sources, including those who have faced political intimidation for sharing their experiences. I hope you will address each of these allegations thoroughly and truthfully during your testimony. Just as importantly, I hope you will pledge to prevent any repercussions for whistleblowers, both civilian and military, if confirmed. Mr. Hegseth, during our meeting last week, you said that if confirmed, your top priority would be, quote, restoring a warrior culture to the Department of Defense, because you believe the U.S. military has been weakened by political correctness. Over the
A warrior culture. Warrior culture. Because it's been weakened. Warriors. We need warriors. Come out.
The years you have made clear your opinion of the military's diversity initiatives. As you have said, quote, diversity is not our strength, unity is.
Diversity is not our strength, unity is.
And on a recent podcast, you said, quote, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles.
Yep, he did say that.
When I joined the Army as a young officer in the 1970s, the U.S. military was rife with racial tension. Women were prohibited from serving in most roles. Gay service members were banned, and we relied on a national draft to fill our ranks. The soldiers I served with were proud to do so, but it was certainly not the nation's most capable military by any standard. We have made great progress since then. Today, the Department of Defense is fully integrated. Every race and religion is accepted. Women serve in all combat roles and leadership positions.
That's correct, bitch. Look at his face. Look at his face when he says that women are doing all that.
Sexual orientation is irrelevant to service, and the all-volunteer force visibly reflects the nation it protects. Our military is more diverse than it has ever been, but more importantly, it is more lethal than it has ever been. This is not a coincidence. Mr. Hegseth.
He has what kind of tattoos? Oh, now what? What does that mean? Do I have to Google that? What does that mean? Is that white supremacy bullshit? I'm sure he does.
Said, I hope you'll explain why you believe such diversity is making the military weak and how you propose to undo that without undermining military leadership and harming readiness, recruitment, and retention. Mr. Hegseth, another reason I'm deeply concerned about your nomination is your disregard for the law of armed conflict and your support for service members who have been convicted of war crimes. You have championed the pardoning of military members who were turned in by their fellow soldiers and SEALs. And let me emphasize that. They weren't discovered by reporters. They were turned in by fellow soldiers and fellow SEALs. And also pardoning of military contractors convicted of.
So I believe he's making reference to soldiers and SEALs who participated in the insurrection who were turned in by fellow soldiers. And he wants to pardon those guys. Right. Oh, Christian warrior. Yeah.
Killing 14 Iraqi citizens without cause. You have also advocated for the restitution of interrogation methods like waterboarding that have been defined as torture.
Good.
And you have belittled the advice and counsel of the Judge Advocates General while on deployment. In your book, The War on Warriors, you write, quote, should we follow the Geneva Convention? If our warriors are forced to follow rules arbitrarily and asked to sacrifice more lives so that international tribunals feel better about themselves, aren't we just better off in winning our wars according to our own rules? Mr. Hegseth, I would ask that you explain how you, if confirmed, would maintain good order and discipline within our forces and the support of our allies and partners by rejecting international law and the law of war. I'm also concerned about your abilities as a competent manager of organizations far less complex than the Department of Defense.
Here we go. We're going to get into his civil life here a little bit.
From 2008 to 2010, you led the organization Veterans for Freedom, which had an annual budget of less than $10 million. In each year you were in charge, expenses far exceeded revenues until the organization teetered on bankruptcy and had to be merged with another group. In fact, according to public reporting, an independent forensic accountant reviewed the organization's finances and discovered evidence of gross financial mismanagement.
Uh-oh, hot dog.
I would note that this report has not been made available to any government agencies, which is, I think, alarming. But a Republican advisor to you during your tenure at the organization who read the report stated, and I quote, I watched him run an organization very poorly, lose the confidence of donors. The organization ultimately folded and was forced to merge with another organization who individuals felt could run and manage funds on behalf of donors more responsibly than he could. I don't know how he's going to run an organization with an $857 billion budget and 3 million individuals.
He's going to Cabo. That's where he's going. This guy's already planned out the houses and everything. Are you joking? $850 billion? Holy shit balls. We are in the shit. We just bankrolled a guy with a gambling addiction. This is my analogy. I'm not saying he has gambling addiction. And, we just bankrolled a gambling addict to go take up residency at fucking Bally's. What the fuck?
And that is the only comment we've had and the only access we've had to the forensic report. A similar thing happened with the Concerned Veterans for America, a second veterans group that you led from 2011 until 2016. During those 5 years, tax records show that the organization spent more than it raised. Just as troubling are reports that a significant amount of debt was incurred from social events and parties filled with excessive drinking and questionable personal behavior.
Uh-oh. You like to party? That's not for the Pentagon.
Mr. Hegseth, I hope you will explain what actions you will take, if confirmed, to be a better steward of Defense Department's large budget. Finally, while I appreciate our meeting last week, it is unacceptable that you did not meet with any other Democratic members of this committee before this hearing, as has been our bipartisan tradition.
He only met with the ranking member who is a Democrat, but met with all the Republicans. What a fucking asshole.
During my time in the Senate, I have voted for and worked closely with Secretaries of Defense appointed by Republican presidents. While we may disagree politically, there was always an understanding that rank partisanship should have no place when it comes to providing for the men and women who serve in uniform. And Mr. Hegseth, I am troubled by the many comments you have made, both as a commentator and in your published writings. For example,
here we go. You guys ready? Strap in.
In your book, American Crusade, you wrote, quote, modern leftists who represent the soul of the modern Democratic Party literally hate the foundational ideas of America.
He likes the word literally. He's so millennial, literally.
You also wrote, the other side, the left, is not our friend. We are not.
That's not true. I am friend.
Esteemed colleagues, nor mere political opponents. We are foes. Either
No. No. That's not how America works. Not enemies because we're on the other side of the aisle.
we win or they win. We agree on nothing else. Mr. Hegseth, if confirmed as Secretary of Defense, you would lead an organization that, like the country it represents, is composed of Democrats and Republicans. Yet your language suggests that you regard many of these men and women as foes. And I would ask you to explain why service members and civilians who do not share your political opinions can trust that they will not be targeted during your tenure.
Because they will be. Like, how can we trust you? We can't. This guy's the literal devil incarnate.
Indeed, the challenge of the Secretary of Defense is to remove partisan politics from the military. You propose to inject it. This would be an insult to the men and women who have sworn to uphold their own apolitical duty to the Constitution. Mr. Hegseth, you are the 9th nominee for Secretary of Defense that I've had the honor to consider as a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. I have voted in favor of all your predecessors, including those in the first Trump administration. Unfortunately, you lack the character and composure and competence to hold the position of Secretary of Defense. Thank you.
Boom! And the shakalakas. Holy cow. Holy cow. Like, Mr. Reed said to Mr. Wicker, what you talking about, Will? Like, what? You go.
Thank you, Senator Reed. And now it's my privilege and honor and pleasure to recognize two witnesses who have come forward to introduce our nominee. First, I recognize my former colleague and former Senator Norm Coleman of Minnesota for the purpose of an introduction. Norm, we are glad to.
Oh, Norm, it's so good to see you, Norm. You're looking good. House fishing, house peeps.
To see you and glad to have you back, and you are recognized for the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Reed, members of the committee, my former colleagues. I'm honored to introduce a son of Minnesota to you, Pete Hegseth. As a senator from Minnesota, I spent many hours with this young man as he walked the halls of Congress advocating on behalf of America's veterans. And he is young in the best sense of the word. He is strong, focused, intelligent, incisive, a great listener, and is almost supernaturally energetic, just what we need in a Secretary of Defense.
Uh-oh, Tom Cruise is going to hear that get real mad.
In times of massive change. He is the real deal. F. Scott Fitzgerald was a writer in my city of St. Paul, and so the problem with America is that there are no second acts. He was wrong. Pete was.
Who gives a fuck what F. Scott Fitzgerald said in the fucking 1900s?
A brave soldier, has been an able communicator, and I believe is about to begin a great second act as our Secretary of Defense. He has struggled and overcome great personal challenges.
No, he's a fucking deadbeat, alcoholic abuser. That's not challenges. Those aren't challenges. He's a bad guy.
Please don't give in to the cynical notion that people can't change. We need the ones who can change to lead us, to be beacons of hope, and to remind us that grace can lead us home. 4 years ago, President Biden's nominee, Lloyd Austin, a good and honorable man, received 97 votes on the floor of the Senate. And we went through the debacle of the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Yeah, and Lloyd Austin is a decorated hero of war. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Putin invaded Ukraine. the Houthis in
Oh, guys, did you know that Lloyd Austin let Putin invade Ukraine? Did you know that Putin called up Lloyd Austin and was like, hey, Lloyd, what's up, homie? What's up, Holmes? Hey, what's good? Anyway, I'm about to, bounce into Ukraine. Okay, peace, deuces. Like, no. People who do actions have to be held accountable for their actions. Putin invaded Ukraine. Lloyd Austin didn't do that. For fuck's sake.
containers our shipping lanes. We witnessed Israeli miracles against America's enemies in the Middle East, where the United States was more of an impediment.
No. We're not going to glorify what's happening between Israel and Palestine right now as glorious. That's fucking bullshit. It's genocide. Moving on.
Our recruitment numbers have sunk dramatically, and our southern border has suffered.
Yeah, nobody wants... Guys, you are talking to Gen Z right now. They have played all of the war games. They ain't about to go to the actual place, okay, where there's no outlets, no fucking things. You think you're going to get these motherfuckers off their iPads to go fight for you? Your recruitment tactics online to turn them into little incels didn't work, okay? These violent games didn't work. They've mastered that shit. Why do they gotta go fucking war and kill people? They just killed 85 people at home. And they have snacks.
A slow but dangerous invasion. Yes, Pete Hegseth is an out-of-the-box nominee, and I say it's high time to get out of the box. One more.
He's an out-of-the-box nominee. Now, what? He's not the normal choice.
Thought. The country longs for a government of less division and more respect and dignity. My hope is that this committee hearing provides what they are asking for. Disagree? Yes. Strong.
Okay. This guy's talking too long. I don't want to keep hearing. Oh, here, let's hear this. Let's hear this other white guy.
You know it's not working. And the members of the House Armed Services know it's not working. And we have hearing after hearing, year after year. And here we are decades later describing the same problems. The Pentagon has continuously failed audits. The businesses that want to do business with the Pentagon have to pass an audit. But the entity itself fails an audit. Innovation is stalled. Morale is down. Standards have been weakened. And meritocracy is less valued. And as a result, our adversaries have been emboldened all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen,
our adversaries have been emboldened all over the world, not because the Pentagon can't pass a budget. What?
Time for change. It is time for change. You all have literally seen thousands of veterans, as the chairman cited one amazing Medal of Honor recipient. But we have seen thousands of veterans expressing their support for Pete. This is a man who can reinvigorate that warrior ethos, and this is a man...
The warrior ethos. Sounds like a yoga studio.
That will lead. I can't imagine having a more capable partner in my position as National Security Advisor. Pete is a man of family, of faith, and he's committed to making our country stronger.
Family? You're going to call this guy a family man?
Again, and most importantly, brother, I know this.
Who's the guy? Who's this guy? Who's that guy? Who is clearly... Is he just a bodyguard? He doesn't even fit in the suit. Look at him. This man doesn't even fit in his suit. He can't button his shirt up all the way, and he's wearing a waistcoat. This guy is a Putin plant right here. This guy is a Cossack plant.
In my core. He will always have as a first principle the service members that are out there on the front lines for all of us at the heart of every decision he makes. So, senators, I urge you to support this confirmation. It is critical that President Trump has his...
Is that fucking what's her butt right there? Is that the fucking right-wing reporter lady? Fuck, she interviewed Mike Rinder. I can't remember her stupid name. She got kicked off Fox News. Is that her?
National security team in place for the challenges ahead. And I thank you.
Kelly or
Thank you,
whatever.
Mike, for your testimony. And I'm guessing that each and every member of this committee will want to have you on speed dial for the next few years. So thank you both. Our two guests may stay, or I know they have other engagements and responsibilities also. But thank you both for your testimony.
Bye.
At this point, Mr. Hegseth, I'm required to ask you as a nominee a series of questions that
I don't know if we want to hear these questions.
the committee asks all civilian nominees who appear before it. If you would, please simply respond in the affirmative or negative to each question. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes, sir.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No, sir.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibilities makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult?
Okay, I'm gonna slow it down, but we're gonna go through this part because no, it's just too much. Let's get to his opening statement here. Look at Tim Kaine. Look at him. Look at Timmy. Timmy is not impressed. Timmy is not impressed. Here we go.
Inflicted on the committee, and we're simply not going to tolerate that. You may proceed.
Uh-oh, what happened? Did somebody boo?
Literally having my back. I pledge to do the same for all of you. Thank you to my father, Brian, and mother, Pam.
Such records.
Yes, sir.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes, sir.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests? So at this point, Mr. Hegseth, you are recognized for your opening statement.
Well, thank you, Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and all the members of this committee for this opportunity today. I'm grateful for and have learned a great deal from this advise and consent process. Our founders knew what they were doing. Should I be confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee, senators from both parties, to secure our nation. I want to thank the former senator from Minnesota, Norm Coleman, for his mentorship and friendship in this process. And the incoming National Security Advisor, Congressman, and more importantly for our purposes, Colonel Mike Waltz, for his powerful words. I'm grateful to them both.
So you just thanked Mike Waltz? Okay.
Thank you to my incredible wife, Jennifer.
Who he's sitting right in front of. You can't see her.
Who has changed my life and been with me throughout this entire process. I love you, sweetheart, and I thank God for you.
I'm going to get emotional.
And as Jenny and I pray together every morning, all glory, regardless of the outcome, belongs to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. His grace and mercy abounds each day. May his will be done. Thank you to my father, Brian, and mother, Penny, as well.
I hate when people who are using Jesus to cover up their crimes and their racism and their homophobia and all this other stuff say, may his will be done. Didn't nowhere Jesus say to do all the shit you're trying to do. I'm so tired of it.
Our entire family, including our 7 wonderful kids, Gunnar, Jackson, Peter Boone, Kensington, Luke, Rex, sorry, it's a lot of them, and Gwendolyn. Their future safety and security is in all of our hands. And to all the troops and veterans watching and here in the room, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, soldiers, pilots, sailors, Marines, Gold Stars, and more, too many friends to name. Officers, enlisted, black and white, young and old, men and women, all Americans, all warriors. This hearing is for you. Thank you for figuratively and literally having my back.
You are a misogynist. Not only that, you are a Christian Zionist. And support the war in Gaza by the Zionists.
Good job for the old man
protesting. I want to thank the authorities for their swift reaction to that outburst and state that
no outbursts.
Similar
no
interruptions will be treated in like manner.
Mr.
Hegseth, you may
we don't
continue.
take that here.
As I'll say again, thank you for figuratively and literally having my back.
The heckler had to go.
I pledge to do the same for all of you. It's an honor to come before this committee today as President Donald Trump's nominee for the office of Secretary of Defense. 2 months ago, 77 million Americans gave President Trump a powerful mandate for change, to put America first, at home and abroad. I want to thank President Trump for his faith in me and his selfless leadership for our republic. The troops have no better commander-in-chief than Donald Trump. As I've said to many of you in private meetings, when President Trump chose me for this position, the primary charge he gave me was to bring the warrior culture back to the Department of Defense. He, like me, wants a Pentagon laser-focused.
Okay, so what my question is here, okay, what my question is, this warrior culture, okay, that he keeps repeating over and over and over and over. Does anybody know what that means? Like, what are they intending to do with this warrior culture that they want to, bring back. I mean, it's clear in Project 2025, the parts that we've read, that, woke culture needs to go, DEI needs to go, gays need to go, traditional family is what we want, et cetera, et cetera. So what does Pete Hegseth and also Donald Trump, what do they believe is a warrior? Like, what is their idea of what a warrior is? Are we looking at something like from the movies? Are we looking at like we're all supposed to be Patton? Are we looking at like are we modeling this after a real person, or is this some sort of like we're all going to become Deadpool? Like, what is it that is, have they watched Braveheart too many times? Like, I am so confused, honestly, on what it is that they feel that a warrior is. First of all, in American culture, right? To call anyone a warrior, to me, is racist, because like I don't know how many high schools across the country have their mascot as a Native American called a warrior, right? Which is very scary to think like that they're going to base this off of the Western cowboy films back in the day of like that kind of a thing. I mean, like, are we? And I know he calls himself a warrior for Christ. So what does that mean? Is this the Crusades times? Like we're going to go back to people just literally slaughtering people if they are not Christian? What does that mean? What does that sorry, the computer's asking for my password. I don't understand. I don't understand what that means. And partially that really frightens it really frightens me as to what vision is it that we are doing, right? Braveheart, right? That's for y'all, Joe. That's for y'all. Okay. William Wallace is, that's a Scottish hero, right? That's not for us. That's for the people of Scotland, and for people of Scottish heritage and, fucking Mel Gibson fans, I guess, or something. I don't know. I mean, it's just, it just seems to me like it is, ridiculous, to use this word warrior with no context other than a guy who is, a Christian warrior. Now, if you go back in time, let's just go back in time here for a minute to the Constantine type situation where Christianity was under attack. Okay. And the Christians were battling the Romans. And this is before Constantine had his epiphany and was like, I saw a cross in the sky and everything, is going to do, and converted everybody, right? And Catholicism was born and yada, 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 right? And this whole thing. Okay. So it's really interesting to me that the one thing that Christian warriors at that time that were fighting the Romans and fighting for their, life, they knew they were going to live again. In early Christianity, these guys were like the kamikaze pilots of the day, right? I feel like I'm totally crooked. I readjusted my camera for the interview I did, and now everything is off. 1 second here. I don't know what you want. My My computer is screaming at me right now. Okay, I don't. Stop it. Okay, there we go. I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's fine now. But so Christians would go to the death because they knew they were going to be born again, right? There was no heaven and hell in the early Christian edict, in the early Christian belief system, right? And then when Constantine took over, and they looked at all the books of the things that had been written and all the stuff, they threw away a bunch of shit. They got rid of the book of Enoch. They got rid of the book of Mary. They got rid of all these different books, right? And then they invented heaven and hell to control their newfound religion, right? Because if the Christians were willing to die because they knew they were coming right back to fucking fight the battle again, they were unstoppable. They had no fear. You can't beat somebody who has no fear, right? So, yeah. This is, I think that's what they're trying to talk about, is that, trying to do something crazy, stupid like that. They got rid of Rufus the Apostle. I never heard of Rufus. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. Let's get back to this thing here. Let's not belabor it.
War fighting, accountability, and readiness.
Look at the guy in the pink. Look at the guy in the pink and the hat. They're just kicking him out. He didn't even do anything. He's just dressed up.
You may continue, sir.
Returning the Pentagon back to warfighting, that's it. That's my job.
Mr. Hegseth, suspend your remarks. Let me just say this. The Capitol Police are going to remove immediately individuals that are disrupting the hearing.
Immediately.
I see a pattern, attempted to be inflicted on the committee, and we're simply not going to tolerate that.
Restore the warrior ethos to the Pentagon and throughout our fighting force. In doing so, we will reestablish trust in our military, addressing the recruiting crisis, the retention crisis, and readiness crisis in our ranks.
Members of the security.
Look at him. Look at it. It's taking 4 cops to pull that guy out.
Mr. Hegseth, you may.
Our differences. Number 2, we're going to rebuild our military, always matching threats to capabilities. This includes reviving our defense industrial base, reforming the acquisitions process, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, no more valley of death for new defense companies, modernizing our nuclear triad, ensuring the Pentagon can pass an audit, and rapidly fielding emerging technologies. And number 3, we're going to reestablish deterrence. First and foremost, we will defend our homeland, our borders, and our skies. Second, we will work with our partners and allies to deter aggression in the Indo-Pacific from the Communist Chinese. And finally,
the Indo-Pacific? And we have to preface Communist Chinese. We're going to start the Red Scare again. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
We will responsibly end wars to ensure that we prioritize our resources to reorient to larger threats. We can no longer count on reputational deterrence. We need real deterrence. The Department.
Look at this Capitol policeman behind him now, just fucking staring down the whole crowd. Because you can't be dissonant in the house of the government, except for the First Amendment guarantees your right to protest. It's just insane.
Of defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
No.
And in pursuing these America First national security goals will remain patriotically.
No, I have it on 1.25, but I'll put it on 1 so you guys can hear. He's still pretty frantic.
Apolitical and stridently constitutional. Unlike the current administration, politics should play no part in military matters.
Tim Kame's just having
We are
none of
not
it.
Republicans We are not Democrats. We are American warriors. Our standards will be high and they will be equal, not equitable. That's a very
They hate the word equity so much.
different word. We need to make sure every warrior is fully qualified on their assigned weapons system, every pilot's fully qualified and current on the aircraft they are flying, and every general or flag officer is selected for leadership or promotion purely based on performance, readiness, and merit. Leaders at all levels will be held accountable, and warfighting and lethality and the readiness of the troops and their families will be our only focus. This has been my focus ever since I first put on the uniform as a young Army ROTC cadet at Princeton University in 2001. I joined the military
Gotta
because
throw
I
the
love
Princeton out
my
there.
country
So he's a
and
rich
felt an
kid
obligation to defend it.
who
I
went to serve. He's a rich boy with aspirations. They trying to JFK him. He's wearing a fucking America pocket square. This is just, guys, we're going to fast forward a bit here.
Incredible America Day. Because when I took off the
Look,
uniform,
people are so
my
bored.
mission never
They're just like, this guy's so full of shit. Even the committee members,
stopped.
like he realized he was on
Now, it
camera.
is
He's
true
got to
in
be
this
good.
Pentagon with supposedly the right credentials. What
Blah, blah.
that
I'm
is
gonna
time
insult
proved
you guys for a minute.
narratives. My only special interest
Look at
is the
Gillibrand
warfighter.
getting ready. I love her.
deterring
taking notes.
wars, and if called
Or
upon,
she's playing
winning
block
wars by
blast.
ensuring. I've led troops in combat. I've been on patrol for days. I've pulled out dead bodies. I led then, and I will lead now. Forward to discussing my organization, a clear vision, build the plan, work the plan for the most important.
That's like an
deployment
Alcoholics
of my
Anonymous thing.
life. I pledge to be a faithful partner to this committee.
Just like you were
and
with
a
your first
strong
wife.
and secure America. Thank you for the time, and I look forward to
Partisan staff agreement from December. And in concert with the
Okay, I'm gonna blah blah blah. This is a bunch of bullshit. Now Jack Reed has some good
claiming
questions.
that they'll lose their pension will have a distraction and detract from the lethality?
Senator, you mentioned the 40s and 50s, and you're precisely right. The military was a forerunner in courageous racial integration in ways no other institutions were willing to do. I served with men and women of all backgrounds because of the courage of people
Do you
decades and
believe,
decades ago.
Mr.
Incredibly
Hegseth,
important.
please, do you mean-
However,
please,
the
do you-
DEI policies of today are not the same as what happened back then. They're dividing troops inside formations, causing commanders to walk on eggshells, not putting meritocracy first. That's the indictment that's made by those serving right now,
Look at Jack Reed's face. He's like, what the fuck?
Excuse me.
and why we're having this
Excuse me.
conversation.
All of your public comments don't talk about meritocracy. They talk about liberal democratic efforts that are destroying the military, that those people are our enemies. That's not meritocracy. That's a political view. And your goal, as I see emerging, is to politicize the military in favor of your particular positions, which you've outlined extensively, which would be the worst blow to the professionalism of the United States military and would undercut readiness, undercut retention.
Look at how disgusted he is with this man.
Because I can see officers receiving these emails beginning to wonder very seriously if they should continue. Let me change the subject for a moment here. You've been instrumental in securing pardons for several convicted war criminals.
Who does that?
In at least two of these cases, the military personnel who served in combat with these convicted service members were not supportive of the pardons. They did their duty as soldiers to report war crimes. Your definition of lethality seems to embrace those people who do commit war crimes, rather than those who stand up and say, this is not right. So what's the response to your service members who personally witnessed these and courageously reported them to their superiors?
Senator, as someone who's led men in combat directly and had to make very difficult decisions, I thought very deeply about the balance between legality and lethality, ensuring that the men and women on the front lines have the opportunity to destroy with and close the enemy, and that lawyers aren't the ones getting in the way. I'm not talking about disavowing the laws of war or the Geneva Conventions.
Except for these are war criminals. These are people who committed war crimes. So he's got to balance legality and lethality. No, you do the law. That's your job. That's what you swear to uphold as a soldier in the United States military. The Constitution and the law. And you follow the rules of combat. You follow these laws. There are no exceptions just because, hey, he's a good soldier. Like, he's my homie. Like, look at all this stuff, other stuff. No, he fucking crime. That's it.
Or the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Sir, I'm talking about restrictive rules of engagement that these men and women behind me understand they've lived with on the battlefield, which has made it more difficult to defeat our enemies. In many of the cases you're talking about in particular, sir, there was evidence withheld, there was prosecutorial misconduct, and as someone who looks case by case and defaults to the warfighter, to the men and women with dust on their boots, not the second guessers in air-conditioned offices in Washington, D.C.
Excuse me,
I looked case by case and was proud to...
Yeah, you're going to become that second guesser in an air-conditioned office in the Pentagon, you dipshit.
To work with President Trump to understand those cases and ensure that our warriors are always looked out for.
Those cases were adjudicated by who? People in Washington or fellow non-commissioned officers who had also served, sacrificed, and believed in the ethic of the military? Who were the court-martial?
Senator, in multiple cases...
No, up. Just answer.
They were actually acquitted, but charges lingered.
Yes,
regardless of where those convening authorities were, yes, sir.
Some were, but others were convicted, and you asked for pardon. That's the only reason you asked for pardon, because they were convicted. But the other factor, too, is you've already disparaged in writing the Geneva Convention, the rules of law, all of these things. How will you be able to effectively lead a military in which one of the principal elements is discipline, respect for lawful authority? You have made statements to your platoon after being briefed by a JAG officer. Well, by the way, would you explain what a JAG off is?
I don't think I need to, sir.
Why not?
Because the men and women watching understand.
Well, perhaps some of my colleagues don't understand.
It would be a JAG officer who puts his or her own priorities in front of the warfighters. Their promotions, their medals, in front of having the backs of those who are making the tough calls on the front lines.
Oh, you mean the Judicial Advocate General, the judiciary branch of the military, the lawyers?
Thank you, Senator Reed.
Interesting.
Thank you, Senator
Thank you
Reed.
very much.
Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Mr. Hegseth, to you and to your family. Thank you for the meeting that we had. We talked about a number of things. First and foremost was that nuclear weapons are foundational to our national defense, and having a safe, effective...
I'm just so happy that you are excited about nukes. Let's go here.
These are focused from the OSD, from the Office of Secretary of Defense, to all the particular strategic initiatives to revive them. So it's not just one system, it's multiple systems.
You may want to expand on that on the record. At this point, my colleagues, I would ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter organized by a group called Flag Officers for America, which has 120 retired generals and admirals offering their support for Mr. Hegseth's nomination. I ask unanimous consent. Without objection, it is entered into the record. Senator Shaheen.
Good morning, Mr. Hegseth.
Good morning, Senator.
I was pleased when I was contacted on your behalf about meeting before this hearing. I've been on this committee since 2011, and during that time, I voted to confirm 6 nominees to be Secretary of Defense from 3 administrations, 2 Democratic and 1 Republican, the first Trump administration. Every one of those nominees met with me and my Democratic colleagues on this committee before the hearing. So, as you can imagine, I was disappointed when no one ever followed up. When we followed up with your office, you were not able to meet. Do you understand that if you're confirmed to be Secretary of Defense, that you will have a responsibility to meet with all members of this committee, not just Republicans?
Senator, I very much appreciate and understand the traditionally bipartisan nature of this committee. Their national defense is not partisan. It should not be about Republicans or Democrats. And so I look forward to working together with you and your colleagues on priorities facing this nation. Yes.
I think we would expect that. And one reason that I wanted to meet with you was because I thought it would be really helpful to better understand your views on women in the military. Because you've made a number of surprising statements about women serving in the military. As recently as November the 7th of 2024 on the Sean Ryan Show, you said, and I quote, "I'm straight up saying that we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective." The quote went on a little longer, but that was the gist of it. That was before you were nominated to be Secretary of Defense. Mr. Hegseth, do you know what percentage of our military is comprised of women?
I believe it's 18 to 20%, Senator.
It's almost 18%. And in fact, DOD's 2023 demographic report indicated that there are more women serving now, and there are fewer separations. So they make up a critical part of our military. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, ma'am. Women in our military, as I have said publicly, have and continue to make amazing contributions across all aspects of our battlefield.
Well, you also write in your book, The War on Warriors, with the chapter, The Deadly Obsession with Women Warriors, that, quote, "Not only are women comparatively less effective than men in combat roles, but they are more likely to be objectified by the enemy and their own nation in the moral realms of war." Mr. Hegseth, should we take it to believe that you believe that the 2 women on this committee who have served honorably and with distinction made our military less effective and less capable?
The War on Warriors. First of all, men cannot get a cold without calling out of work for a week and whining the entire time. Women have a fucking period every month that science has now shown the pain is equivalent to a heart attack for weeks on end. Yet we're too fragile, guys. We're too fragile for war. We're too fragile.
I'm incredibly grateful for the two women who served our military in uniform, and including in the Central Intelligence Agency, contributions on the battlefield, indispensable contributions. Senator, I would like to clarify, when I'm talking about that issue, it's not about the capabilities of men and women, it's about standards. And this committee has talked a lot about standards. Standards that we, unfortunately, over time, have seen eroded in certain duty positions, certain schools, certain places, which affects readiness, which is what I care about the most, readiness on the battlefield.
I appreciate that.
And so my comments point time and time again to standards.
Your statements publicly have not been to that effect. After your nomination, you did state to a group of reporters that you, quote, support all women serving in our military today who do a fantastic job across the globe, including combat. So what I'm confused about, Mr. Hegseth, is which is it? Why should women in our military, if you were the Secretary of Defense, believe that they would have a fair shot and an equal opportunity to rise through the ranks? If on the one hand, you say that women are not competent, they make our military less effective, and on the other hand, you say, oh no, now that I've been nominated to be the Secretary of Defense, I've changed my view on women in the military. What do you have to say to the almost 400,000 women who are serving today about your position on whether they should be capable to rise through the highest ranks of our military?
Senator, I would say I would be honored to have the opportunity to serve alongside you, shoulder to shoulder, men and women, black, white, all backgrounds, with a shared purpose. Our differences are not what define us. Our unity and our shared purpose is what define us. And you
Can you just answer a fucking question?
will be treated fairly and with dignity, honor, and respect, just like every man and woman in uniform, just like the men and women that I've worked with in my veterans organizations, to include when I was a headquarters and headquarters company commander in the Minnesota National Guard.
Well, I appreciate your 11th hour conversion. But, Mr. Chairman, for the record,
Your 11th hour
I would like
conversion.
to submit Chapter 5, The Deadly Obsession with Women Warriors, for the record. Mr. Hegseth,
Without objection, it will be submitted.
are you familiar?
I want to read this book now, The Deadly Obsession with Women Warriors, because you know he's like, fuck that shit.
With the Women, Peace, and Security agenda at the Department of Defense?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
This is a law that was signed during President-elect Trump's first term. It was legislation that I sponsored with Republican Senator Capito of West Virginia. It was co-sponsored by Marco Rubio, the nominee to be the President-elect's Secretary of State. It was led in the House of Representatives by Kristi Noem, the President-elect's nominee to be the Secretary of Homeland Security. It mandates that women be included in all aspects of our national security, including conflict resolution and peace negotiations. And at the Department of Defense, it has been the law for 8 years under both the Trump and Biden administrations. The DoD has incorporated women throughout its decision-making as a result. Every single combatant commander across 2 administrations has told this committee that this law and its implementation at the Department of Defense provides them a strategic advantage operationally. Based on your comments, it appears that the example that you would like to set, not only for women in this country, but for women across the globe, 50% of the world's population, as the prospective nominee to lead the most combat-credible military in the entire world, is that women should not have an equal opportunity in our military. So will you commit?
So let's answer. Let's listen carefully to the question she's going to ask him, and watch how he does not answer.
To preserving the Women, Peace, and Security law at DoD, and including in your budget the requisite funding to continue to restore and resource these programs throughout the DoD.
Senator, I will commit to reviewing that program.
He's going to review it.
And ensuring it aligns with America First national security priorities.
America First. Look at her. She's trying to take a deep breath. She's so mad.
Meritocracy, lethality, and readiness. And if it advances American interests, it's something we would advance. If it doesn't, it's something we would look at.
Since former President Trump signed the law, I hope that he agrees with you.
Yeah. Former President Trump already put this in, dipshit. This is the law he signed in.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. At this point, I would ask unanimous consent to enter into the record 5 letters of support from female service members and combat veterans who support Mr. Hegseth's
50 pounds. The average weight of a full kit, ammo, water, commo, body armor for a soldier is over 100 pounds.
How can ladies carry all this equipment?
Can change any of those things, right? That is physical reality.
I mean, they're fragile.
Go ahead. Yes, Senator. And I would say the requirements to handle those things in a ground combat unit, as far as standards, can look different than those of a medic or a drone pilot. And so it's not that it has to be the same standard throughout. It's standards to maximize.
I've never seen a big-breasted woman in my life carry 4 bags of groceries in each hand from her minivan into her car while a kid is strapped to her back. I mean, it's amazing to me that we're going to ask these women to put on this equipment and walk through the desert. Senator Cotton, sir, women have been bearing the burden of weight of not only your inadequacy, but doing all of the work for years. Putting those things in a comfy, fun-fitting backpack would make our lives easier. Okay? Fuck right off.
And the technical capabilities so that no young man or woman enters into a battle as a fair fight, and that they always have the advantage. Those are the types of questions that I'd like to get into right now. And I want to start by talking about something that sometimes gets a little bit into the weeds, but I think it's critical. Mr. Hegseth, from what I've heard from 24 senior DOD officials in hearings over the last 2 years, including the Secretary of Defense, every service chief, and 8 combatant commanders.
A bunch of young vets with no political experience, a small group.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having this hearing. Thank you.
We're here by Senator here.
Mr. Hegseth, and I want to join in expressing appreciation and respect for your service to our country, and thanks to all the veterans who are here today, and thank you for your service as the ranking member of the
this is Blumenthal, not mine. They look exactly alike.
For our veterans, and doing better in management of the Department of Defense. There's always room for improvement. I think what we need.
This man is as old as my mother. Your hair is not black, sir.
In financial management, because those decisions are life and death decisions affecting the 3.4 million Americans who serve our national security and our national defense and put their lives on the line. I want to talk about financial mismanagement at the 2 organizations that you headed, which are the only test of your financial management that we have before this committee, the Veterans for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America. You took over the Veterans for Freedom in 2007. In 2008, you raised $8.7 million, but spent more than $9 million, creating a deficit. By January 2009, you told donors that the organization had less than $1,000 in the bank and debts of $434,000. By 2010, revenue at the Veterans for Freedom had...
At this point, he needs a drink so bad. He's trying to not day drink. That is water. It is not vodka. He is very upset.
Dropped to about $265,000. In the next year, it had dropped further to $22,000. You don't dispute these numbers, do you?
Senator, I'm extremely proud of the work me and my fellow vets did at Vets for Freedom. A bunch of young vets with no political experience, a small group, working hard every single day. We raise donor funds.
Reclaiming my time.
And we have letters submitted for the record from almost everyone that worked with me every single day, including our chief operating officer, who will attest that every dollar we raised was used intentionally toward the execution of our mission, which is supporting the warfighters. Exactly why we're here today. The warfighters in the Iraq surge. There was a campaign in 2008, Senator. If Barack Obama versus John McCain, we believe John McCain would be the right man. And so we spent
tax returns from that organization.
I'm glad they're for the record.
I'm going to ask to be entered into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Reclaiming my time. This man's a criminal.
These tax returns are yours. They have your signature. And I'm going to ask that members of the committee review them because they're the only documents. I've asked for others. I've asked for the FBI report that would presumably document, it should have documented, this kind of financial mismanagement. And these are the 990s from that organization. By
Where's the FBI
year
report?
of 2011, donors had become so dissatisfied with that mismanagement, they, in effect, ousted you. They merged that organization with Military Families United, and thereafter, you joined a second organization as executive director.
In between, Senator, I went to Harvard University for 2 years and Afghanistan.
I want to ask you questions about Concerned Veterans for America.
College.
Again,
I went to
another set of tax returns, 990s from that
Harvard.
organization. I asked they be made part of the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, both of those returns are now part of the record.
2011 to 2016. At the end of 2013, shortfall of $130,000. At the end of 2014, shortfall of $428,000. You had a surplus the following year, but then another deficit of $437,000. By the time you left, that organization had deep debts, including credit card transaction debts of about $75,000. That isn't the kind of fiscal management we want at the Department of Defense. We can't tolerate it at the Department of Defense. That's an organization with a budget of $850 billion. Not 10 or 15 million, which was the case at those 2 organizations. And it has command responsibility for 3.4 million Americans. The highest number that you managed in those 2 organizations was maybe 50 people. Let me ask you, how many men and women now serve in the United States Army? What is Sen's strength?
Senator, I would like an opportunity to respond to the impugning of my leadership of a veterans organization. Concerned Veterans for America, you're on the VA committee, sir, and I appreciate your service there. The VA Accountability Act and the Mission Act were all brainchilds of Concerned Veterans for America. We used our donor money very intentionally and focused to create policy that bettered the lives of veterans.
Mr. Hegseth, I'm asking you a very simple question. How many men and women currently serve in the United States Army?
Senator, the United States Army, 450,000 on active duty, sir.
And how many in the Navy?
And the Navy is 425, sir.
Well, it's 337 this year. How many in the Marine Corps?
175,000, sir.
172,300. Those numbers dwarf any experience you had by many multiples. I don't believe that you can tell this committee or the people of America that you are qualified to lead them. I would support you as the spokesperson for the Pentagon. I don't dispute your communication skills, but I believe that we are entitled to the facts here. I've asked for more documents. I assume you'd be willing to submit to an expanded FBI background check that interviews your colleagues, accountants, ex-wives, former spouses, sexual assault survivors, and others, and enable them to come forward.
Senator, I'm not in charge of FBI background checks.
But you would submit to it and support it.
I'm not in charge of FBI background checks.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal.
Wow!
I at this point want to
He
submit a
says
letter from Captain
no.
Wade Zirkle, the founder of Vets for Freedom, and the person who hired Pete Hegseth to run.
Blah, blah, blah.
Because I have a lot of gray
Or tail, we need to know that. Or if it's wasted.
A lot of Iowans are really Iowa Army National Guard member. Mr. Lucas and I served together in the Iowa Army National Guard. He succeeded Pete Hegseth as Executive Director of Concerned Veterans for America. And in his letter, Mr. Lucas says that Mr. Hegseth, quote, laid a strong foundation that postured CVA for long-term success, end quote. And that Mr. Hegseth, quote, continued to be an invaluable asset to both me as a leader and the organization, end quote. So I would ask for unanimous consent to enter this Washington Times article and the letter from Mr. Mark Lucas into the record.
Without objection.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Hegseth, and thank you very much. I appreciate your service to our nation. It's something that I know you are very proud of, and it is something that we have in common and that we share. You and I have had many productive conversations. And just for our audience, we have had very frank conversations. Is that correct, Mr. Hegseth?
Senator, that is a correct characterization.
You know that I don't keep anything hidden, pull no punches. My colleagues know that as well. So I do appreciate you sitting down and allowing me the opportunity to question you thoroughly on those issues that are of great importance to me. Just to recap those issues, three that are very important. One is the DOD and making sure that we have a clean audit. The second is women in combat, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And the third was maintaining high standards and making sure that we are combating sexual assault in the military. Okay, so Mr. Hegseth, I'm going to address the issue because this will tie into some of the financial concerns that have been raised here as well. And it's why, I, trusting my fellow Iowan, asked for unanimous consent of his letter to go into the record. But like me, a lot of Iowans are really, really concerned and upset about the wasteful Washington spending and of course, in our Pentagon. It's an issue that I've been combating agency that has.
So she's going to talk about the spending.
So I appreciate that you mentioned that in your opening statement.
Here we go.
What are those steps that you will take to ensuring the Pentagon has a clean audit by the year 2028?
Senator, I appreciate your work on this topic, which you've been involved in for a long time. You mentioned Concerned Veterans for America. I just want to clarify. We have very generous donors who set a very clear budget that we stuck to every single year. So the latitude there was restricted, and we worked very hard and diligently inside it. You've also been a leader on the Pentagon audit for a very long time. I think when we met, Senator, I said 2014 was the first year. We discovered a 2013 op-ed I wrote about the need for a Pentagon audit because audit is an issue of national security and frankly, respect to American taxpayers who give $850 billion over to the Defense Department and expect that we know where that money goes. And if that money is going somewhere that doesn't add to tooth and instead goes to fat or tail, we need to know that. Or if it's wasted, we need to know that. So I think previous secretaries of defense, with all due respect,
fat or tail?
haven't necessarily emphasized the strategic prerogative of an audit. And myself, my deputy, SecDef, and others already know the Pentagon audit will be the comptroller, others central to ensuring we find those dollars that can be used elsewhere legally under the law inside the Pentagon. So you have my word, it will be a priority.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to women in combat. And I had the privilege of serving in uniform for over 23 years between our Army Reserves and our Iowa Army National Guard. Did serve in Kuwait and missions in Iraq. And so it is incredibly important.
Did you guys know that Joni Ernst served all that shit in the Army? Give it up for this woman for her service. Now listen to her question.
Important that I stress, and I hope that if confirmed, you continue to stress that every man and woman has opportunity to serve their country in uniform and do so at any level as long as they are meeting the standards that are set forward. And we talked about that in my office. I do believe in high standards. Now, I was denied the opportunity to serve in any combat role because I have a lot of gray hair. And
she's still pissed about that, man. She wanted to go fucking into combat. They told her she was too old.
Policy has changed since then, okay? So I've been around for quite a while. But for the young women that are out there now and can meet those standards, and again, I'll emphasize they should be very, very high standards. They must physically be able to achieve those standards. so that they can complete their mission. But I want to know, again, let's make it very clear for everyone here today. As Secretary of Defense, will you support women continuing to have the opportunity to serve in combat roles?
Senator, first of all, thank you for your service, as we discussed extensively as well.
It's my privilege.
And my answer is yes, exactly the way that you caveated it. Yes.
Exactly the way you caveated it.
Women will have access to ground combat roles, given
Uh-oh, here comes the caveat.
the standards remain high, and we'll have a review to ensure the standards have not been eroded in any one of these cases. That'll be part of one of the first things we do at the Pentagon is reviewing that in a gender-neutral way, the standards, ensuring readiness and meritocracy is front and center. But absolutely, it would be the privilege of a lifetime, if confirmed, to be the Secretary of Defense for all men and women in uniform who fight so heroic. They have so many other options. They decide to put their right hand up for our country, and it would be an honor to have a chance to lead them.
Thank you. And just very briefly, we only have less than a minute left, but we have also discussed this in my office. A priority of mine has been combating sexual assault. And
Look, notice how she tossed her hair behind her ear because she's getting serious now. Talking about sexual assault. She's not fucking around. I did not think this was going to come from a Republican.
The military, and making sure that all of our service members are treated with dignity and respect. This has been so important. Senator Gillibrand and I have worked on this, and we were able to get changes made to the Uniform Code of Military Justice to make sure that we have improvements and on how we address the tragic and life-altering issues of rape, sexual assault. It will demand time and attention from the Pentagon under your watch if you are confirmed. So as Secretary of Defense, will you appoint a senior level official dedicated to sexual assault prevention and response?
Senator, as we have discussed, yes, I will.
Okay, and my time has expired. Thank you.
So he's going to appoint somebody who's dedicated to just that. Okay, we're going to get to Ms. Hirono here.
Ranking Member Reed with his concerns regarding your nomination because I share those concerns. As part of my responsibility as a member of this committee to ensure the fitness of all nominees to come before any of the committees on which I sit, I ask the following two initial questions. First.
Okay, now she's asking questions. She says no preamble. Please pay attention.
Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
Since you became a legal adult, have you, made unwanted advances? Okay?
No, Senator.
Have you ever
He's going to answer no.
faced discipline or entered into a settlement relating to this kind of conduct?
Senator, I was falsely
The answer is not yes or no.
accused in October of 2017. It was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared.
I don't think completely cleared is accurate, but the fact is that your own lawyer said that you entered into an NDA and paid a person who accused you of raping her a sum of money to make sure that she did not file a complaint.
That's facts. It was not completely cleared. He paid a settlement and had this woman sign an NDA so that she could never speak out again to tell the truth about their interaction, which was him raping her.
Moving on. As Secretary, you will be in charge of maintaining good order and discipline by enforcing the Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ. In addition to the sexual assault allegations, and by the way, the answer to my second question should have been yes. I have
She's not going to let it go. Thank you, Maisie.
read multiple reports of your regularly being drunk at work.
Look at the eye roll. Look at the eye roll. He's jonesing. He's jonesing for a drink.
Including by people who worked with you at Fox News. Do you know that being drunk at work is prohibited for service members under the UCMJ?
Let's see what his answer is.
Senator, those
Yes
are
or no?
multiple
Yeah. Yes or no?
false anonymous reports peddled by NBC
Do you
News
know that
run directly
Look at him. Look at him. This is what a desperate man like. I would love for a body language expert to just look at this caption right here. This is a man who's lying through his greasy hair.
on the job
contradictory
is
to the dozens of men and women at
not
Fox News
contemplated.
Channel
And
who
I'm
I
not
work
hearing-
with
I'm
who
not
came
hearing
on
the
the
answer to my
record
question.
and said
In your
I don't hear an answer to my question. I fucking love you, Maisie.
opening statement, Mr. Hegseth, you commit to holding leaders accountable at all levels. That includes you, of course. And frankly, as Secretary, you will be on the job 24/7. You recently promised some of my Republican colleagues that you stopped drinking and won't drink if confirmed.
Yeah, remember that press conference? I promised to quit drinking if I'm confirmed.
Correct?
absolutely.
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
I've made this commitment.
Did you see him shake his head no? He He absolutely said no.
On behalf of
Will
the
you
men and women I'm
resign as
serving.
Secretary of Defense
I've made
if
this
you
commitment
drink
on
on the
behalf of
job?
the men and women I'm serving
I'm not
because it's
hearing-
the most important deployment
I'm not
of my
hearing an
life.
answer to my question, so I'm going to move on. While you have made that commitment, you will not commit to resigning if you drink on the job. As Secretary of Defense, you will swear an oath to the Constitution and not an oath to any man, woman, or president, correct?
Senator, on multiple occasions, including as a young second lieutenant, I have sworn an oath to the
Answer is
Constitution,
yes.
and I'm proud to do so. Yes, ma'am.
In June of 2020, then President Trump directed former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper to shoot protesters in the legs in downtown D.C., an order Secretary Esper refused to comply with. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
Would you
events.
carry out an
He cannot answer a question.
order to
On
shoot
behalf of my
protesters
country,
in the legs?
I saw
as
50 Secret
directed
Service agents
to
get injured by
Secretary Esper?
riders trying to jump over the fence, set
Again,
the church on fire, and destroy
You know
a
what? That sounds
statue.
to me that you will
Chaos.
comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg. Moving on. President-elect has attacked our allies in recent weeks, refusing to rule out using military force to take over Greenland and the Panama Canal, and threatening to make Canada the 51st state. Would you carry out an order from President Trump to seize Greenland, a territory of our NATO ally Denmark, by force, or would you comply with an order to take over the Panama Canal?
Senator, I will emphasize that President Trump received 77 million votes to be the lawful commander.
We're not talking about the election. My question is, would you use our military to take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so
Yes, the answer is yes.
I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any
That
context.
sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland and take over the Panama Canal. Current DOD policy allows...
Look how he doesn't fight back. Look how he doesn't go like, Maisie, come on, that's crazy. It's crazy. Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
service members and eligible dependents to be reimbursed for travel associated with non-covered reproductive health care, including abortions. Will you maintain this common sense policy?
Senator, I've always been personally pro-life. I know President Trump has as well, and we will review all policies. But our standard is whatever the president wants on this particular issue. With my advice, I will take a
if the
look at.
president tells you that this common sense policy will not be maintained, you will not enable our service members to seek reproductive care. So
I don't believe the federal government.
There you go.
Hearing answers to my questions, Mr. Chairman. I just want to note that the other area that of serious concern to me is President Trump saying that he wants to use the military to help with mass deportations, which will cost billions of dollars. And what that will do to readiness is very, very concerning. Mr. Hegseth, I have noticed a disturbing pattern. You previously have made a series of inflammatory statements about women in combat, LGBTQ service members, Muslim Americans, and Democrats. Since your nominations, however, you have walked those back on TV and interviews, and most recently in your opening statements. You are no longer on Fox and Friends, Mr. Hegseth. If confirmed, your words,
look at him smugly laugh at her,
actions and decisions will have real impacts on national security and our service members' lives. There are close to 3 million personnel in the Department of Defense, $900 billion budget. I hardly think you are prepared to do the job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. That wasn't a question, Mr. Hegseth. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. More grants. Okay, we got to see the Tim Kaine. The Tim Kaine, and then we're going to... Tim Kaine takes him apart. Even though his hair's not combed today, he's looking a little gruff. Tim Kaine lets him have it. Here we go.
Fully investigated and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime? That's your definition of cleared? You had just...
No doubt.
Let me turn to another one. Last year at a hearing before this committee, I called on the Biden Secretary of the Navy to resign because he's failing. Secretary of the Navy has been focused on climate change, not building ships in Lee. Will you commit to me to fire him?
My Secretary of the Navy, should I be confirmed, sir, will not be focused on climate. Electric-powered tanks.
Let me ask.
We're going to be focused on lethality and defeating our enemy.
And I appreciate that. This is all I'm describing the woke military here under by our military and focus on
in recruiting numbers. There's already been a surge since President Trump won the election of recruiting the reality and warfighting and get all the woke, political prerogative, politically correct, social justice, political stuff out of the military.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan.
Thank you,
Senator Kaine.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to talk. I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago that occurred in Monterey, California in October 2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully investigated and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime. That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you were completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was, and you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges. Well, no, fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I'm so grateful for the marriage I have to this.
No, you've admitted that you had sex at that hotel in October 2017. You said it was consensual, isn't that correct?
Anything?
You've admitted that it was consensual, and you were still married, and you just had a child by another woman. Again, how do you explain your judgment?
Completely false charges against me. You fully investigated, and I was completely clear.
You have admitted that you had sex while you were married to wife 2 after you just had fathered a child by wife 3. You've admitted that. Now, if it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
It was a false claim then and a false claim now.
If it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
That was a false claim.
So you're
talking about a hypothetical.
So you can't tell me whether someone who has committed a sexual assault is disqualified from being Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I know in my instance, and I'm talking about my instance only, it was a false claim.
But you acknowledge, that you cheated on your wife and that you cheated on the woman by whom you had just fathered a child. You have admitted that.
I will allow your words to speak for themselves.
You're not retracting that today. That's good. I assume that in each of your weddings, you've pledged to be faithful to your wife. You've taken an oath to do that, haven't you?
Senator, as I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, not a perfect person, not claiming to be.
But no, I just asked a simple question. You've taken an oath, like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense in all of your weddings, to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct?
I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
In finalizing divorces from your first and second wives, were there non-disclosure agreements in connection with those divorces?
Senator, not that I'm aware of.
If there were, would you agree to release those first and second wives from any confidentiality agreement?
Senator, it's not something I'm aware of.
But if there were, you would agree to release them from a confidentiality agreement?
Senator, that's not my responsibility.
Did you ever engage in any acts of physical violence against any of your wives?
Senator, absolutely not.
But you would agree with me that if someone had committed physical violence against a spouse, that would be disqualifying to serve as Secretary of Defense, correct?
Senator, absolutely not have I ever done that.
You would agree that that would be a disqualifying offense, would you not?
Can't
Senator,
answer.
you're talking about a hypothetical.
I don't think it's a hypothetical. Violence against spouses occurs every day. And if you as a leader are not capable of saying that physical violence against a spouse should be a disqualifying fact for being Secretary of the most powerful nation in the world, you're demonstrating an astonishing lack of judgment. The incident in Monterey led to a criminal charge, a criminal investigation, a private settlement, and a cash payment to the woman who filed the complaint. And there was also a non-disclosure agreement, correct?
It was a confidential settlement agreement off of a nuisance lawsuit.
Right. During an interview, you claimed that you settled the matter because you were worried that if it became public, it might hurt your career. Do you maintain that you were blackmailed?
Senator, I maintain that false claims were made against me. And ultimately,
your attorney used the phrase,
I have the opportunity to attest my innocence in those false claims.
But you didn't reveal any of this to President Trump or the transition team as they were considering you to be nominated for Secretary of Defense. You didn't reveal the action. You didn't reveal the criminal complaint. You didn't reveal the criminal investigation. You didn't reveal the settlement. You didn't reveal the cash payment. Why didn't you inform the commander-in-chief and the transition team of this very relevant event?
Senator, I've appreciated every part of the process with the transition team. They have been open and honest with me. We've had great conversations between the two of us, and I appreciate the opportunity that President-elect Trump
But you chose not to reveal this, right? Because you knew it would hurt your chances. So you chose not to reveal this really important thing to the commander-in-chief and the transition team because you were worried about your chances rather than trying to be candid with the future president of the United States. Are there any other important facts that you chose not to reveal to the president-elect and his team as they were considering you to be Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I sit here before you in open book, as everyone who's watched this process.
With multiple non-disclosure and confidentiality agreements tying the hands of many people who would like to comment to us. Much has been made of your workplace behavior as a leader of nonprofit veterans organizations and as a Fox News contributor. Were you fired from either of the leadership positions with the nonprofits?
I was the leader. I was the CEO of Veterans for America, and executive director of Vets for Freedom.
Were you fired from?
And I was never fired from a veterans organization.
Do you have non-disclosure agreements with either of those organizations?
Not that I'm aware of, Senator.
Many of your work colleagues have said that you show up for work under the influence of alcohol or drunk. I know you've denied that, but you would agree with me, right, that if that was the case, that would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense.
Senator, those are all anonymous false claims, and the totality
they're not anonymous.
The letters on the record here,
they're not anonymous.
on the record.
We've seen records with names
Vets
attached
for Freedom, Concerned Vets for America, and Fox News.
One of your colleagues
working
said,
hard every day on behalf of
one of your colleagues said that you got drunk at an event at a bar and chanted "Kill all Muslims." Another colleague, not anonymous, we have this, said that you took coworkers to a strip club. You were drunk. You tried to dance with strippers. You had to be held off the stage, and one of your employees in that event filed a sexual harassment charge as a result of it. Now, I know you denied these things, but isn't that the kind of behavior that, if true, would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense?
Senator, anonymous false charges.
They're not anonymous. And I'll just conclude and say this to the chairman. You claim that this was all anonymous. We have seen records with names attached to all of these, including the name of your own mother. So don't make this into some anonymous press thing. We have seen multiple names of colleagues consistently throughout your career that have talked about your abusive actions.
Chairman, I think he's over his time. He's way over his time.
I now yield.
And thank you very much. I now ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a family court order concerning the appointment of parenting time between Mr. Hegseth and Mrs. Samantha Hegseth. It states that there were no claims of domestic abuse or probable evidence of abuse in the relationship.
So just from what we've seen here, guys, let's just do a quick poll. Put a 1 in the chat if you would vote for this man to be the head of all military operations, give him $850 billion, okay, and allow him to control whether or not we start World War III. If you think that's the worst idea that's ever happened to America or the world, please put a 0. Like, holy shit balls. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you. Like, holy shit balls. This is, thank you guys, minus $9 billion. Like, I cannot think of a worse possible, I mean, probably, I shouldn't say those words. There could not be a worse possible candidate right now for the Secretary of Defense. He will do whatever Trump wants. If Trump, let's go total hypothetical, because yesterday we talked about his intentions towards Greenland. Let's say Trump's like, let's do it. Let's fucking take Greenland. Fuck the Danes. Do you think he will do it? Put a 1 in the chat if you think he would 100% execute the invasion of Greenland in a heartbeat. Put a 0 if you think he won't. Yeah. CJ, you don't think he will, or are you answering the first question? Yeah, I think he absolutely, I think whatever President Trump wants, this man is going to do. Boom. No hesitation, no nothing. He's going to do it. We are fucked. We are fucked at the drive-thru, as Joe Pesci would say. Holy shit balls. And for those of you guys who weren't here yesterday to hear the great news, this channel is now monetized. So if you feel like it, you can send a super sticker or super chat, or you can become a member of this channel. I would appreciate, yeah, no more Ozempic for America. Yeah. Yeah, the only thing he won't do for Trump is quit drinking. This guy is jonesing for whatever his vice is right now. Let me get to your questions and comments here, guys. Yeah, I haven't watched the video yet, so I don't know what it says. Kelly, I'm with you. I'm sick of old white racist hypocrites. Hegseth is not anywhere near being qualified. No, guys, he's not qualified to take my fucking order at Taco Bell. Okay? Like, Jesus Christ. This was indeed a joke, a complete joke. Here we go. My Irish temper is spoiling. Yeah, that accent went awry. I apologize. I watched this earlier. If he's confirmed, our country is in, God, I keep feeling like I got to sneeze right here. In big trouble. Yeah, Putin is hoping we get Hegseth. He's just hoping. Yeah. The Lord guided me through it all. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. JWs believe that hell is the common grave humans go to when they die. I did not know that. Interesting. Kid. R.I.P. Jimmy Carter. Yeah, Tim Kaine. I'm a little concerned about Tim Kaine's health right now. He's looking very purple in the face, which is like a precursor to like heart attack symptoms. So if somebody, Tim Kaine, please go get checked out by a doctor. I love you and I want you to be well. I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned. You have so much to say about this sleazeball, but I'm really, really sick. Yeah, he's not qualified to work at Applebee's. I'd love to hear more. This privileged bro reminds me of college students in Legally Blonde. Yes. And I agree, Vernon. He would make a great Scientologist. Let me get to your questions here. Is it 4:30 Pacific? No. Yeah. These highlights, you can go back. I'm going to put a link to the C-SPAN coverage so you guys can fast forward and check it all out. I prefer to watch this on C-SPAN, which is where we were watching it, because you just see it pure with no commentary, which I highly recommend if you're going to watch it. Watch the real thing. Don't watch interruptions and commentary and people talking over important questions and important moments. There will be a What's Up with Nora Live. I have to finish this one first. Tim Kaine did. No, he doesn't answer our questions, but Maisie was fucking amazing. That wasn't a question. Thank you, the narrator. If you can't answer the questions, you can't do the job. Yeah, exactly. Anaphylaxis in the house. Thank you so much for this super chat. Yay for monetizations. Congrats. Yes, thank you. I'm very excited about it as well. That witch share. What's up, lady who's doing amazing protesting down at Big Blue. The men who came up with Christianity came up with it for their forgiveness BS. They can or do whatever the fuck they want. And because their mythology, I got to expand your comment here, teaches forgiveness no matter what you do. They can get away with anything. Yeah. It's kind of gross. But very true. Let me just make sure I didn't. Stacy Toms became a member. Thank you so much, Stacy, for becoming a member. I appreciate you. Guys, this has been an amazing stream. Please go watch this congressional hearing in full. Okay. I know Ernst tried her best, though. I have to say, she gave him what hell she could without, rocking the boat too much. But I was proud of her for standing up for women in combat, in the way that she did. Let's put it that way. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Please watch C-SPAN more, guys, because you see the real deal. You see it as it happens, and you see it with no spin. It's definitely the only no spin zone in the world. I thank you guys for your time. Don't forget, the store is open. ohnomerica.com. Get yourself a water bottle or a mug or whatever you want, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Oh No America. I'm your host, Nora Ames. Hopefully this day has been informative, fun, and giving you a little sparkle of America. Thank you to my mods, as always, for keeping things cool, chill. And if you guys want some of that sweet, sweet merch, hit us up at ohnomerica.com.